What's going on, everyone in Lukman Nation? Welcome to the People's Power Lunch in Lukman Nation with me, Jackie Lukman, the People's Prophetess. Welcome to the lunchroom. I see y'all piling into the lunchroom. Come on in, be orderly, be calm. I think there's plenty for everyone. Grab a tray, grab a plate, check out the buffet. We do buffets here. Check out the buffet, pick what you like, enjoy yourselves, mingle, find your friends, find a nice table, sit down. If you brought your lunch, warm your lunch up. Find a table with your friends and comrades. Be orderly, but do come into the cafeteria for this People's Power Lunch on Thursday, July 14th. And I see the regular lunch crowd in Forest Hinton. Haven't seen you in a minute. Good to see you, Leah Boggs, Lisa Catlett, Mimi McCoy. Welcome. Quaker Anarchist, Alex Marquez Perez, Jordan Jones, Kamari Dreamchild, Eugene Mason, Tay C, Savvy Sav, hey, Miriam Francis. Margaret and Danny are going live at 1:15. Dang it. I hate to miss my comrades whenever we're all on. But that's kind of the thing. Like we're always cross-pollinating each other's platforms as we should. So we're always working together and because there is so much to do. There is so much work to be done. We are always, all of us, so very busy. I see more of the lunch crowd are coming in. Sugar Shan, hey, hey, hey. Karina Acria Payez, hey, Prima. Good to see you. Folks, let's see. Tay has an appointment right now, but they're getting their lunch first. Thank you for bringing us along to your appointment. Introduce us, I guess, to your doctors or nurses or whoever. Ariana Gladney, welcome, welcome. Glad to see you. Ooh, yeah, I just did my I try to do like I've told you before. Manny Nile, what's going on? Peace. I try to do a walk at least 40 minutes every day here, since the way we record gives us a big block of free time in the middle of the day at Sputnik because we share two studios with three other shows. So we kind of have to rotate schedules. Chanel Pittman, it's good to see you. Have not seen you in a minute. I'm so glad you've shown up. Good to see you. I'm glad you are well. Courtney, Norray, my girl, shoemake, Norray, baby boo, how you doing? Big hugs from me to you and your kiddos and your fur babies. Mwah, love you so much. Um, yeah, so today's walk was about 40 minutes, a little shorter than 40 minutes. And I like walking in general. I just like being outside, but I like walking downtown because there's actually a lot of stuff to see, and I like to people watch. I like to see how people kind of are just kind of out in the streets, and man, people are just weird. It's just the strangest thing to see people in a city on such a beautiful day. I'm here in Washington, D.C., on such a beautiful day, just walking around with all kinds of attitude. It's just very odd. This system is doing a number on all of us to the point where we don't even realize that we can't enjoy um, a sunny, beautiful day and be outside. That's very and it's something that I don't think people realize how deeply we're affected by, the grind culture, the hustle culture, the it's really, really terrible. But anyway, before we get started, excuse me, let's get some housekeeping out of the way. If you are watching on Black Power Media, I hope you are a subscriber. If you're not a subscriber to Black Power Media, fix that and subscribe and click the notification bell so you can be notified whenever any content is posted or a live happens on the channel. There is lots on Black Power Media for lots of different tastes, interests, and there is more to come. We are developing more. You can also support Black Power Media on Patreon, patreon.com/Black Power Media. And we got merch, right? Yeah, we do. Black Power Media has merch, and you can support Black Power Media through merch. But guess what? You can also support Luke Mon Nation through patreon.com/Luke Mon Nation. And Luke Mon Nation also has a little bit of merch too that is in the process of being updated for our long-term patrons. For those of you who have been rocking out with the Luke Mon since the beginning, when we started from the bottom, now we here. You will be getting some brand new merch in the weeks to come. Some more of my friends have come into the lunchroom to enjoy lunch together. Robert Hughes, Toby, hey, comrade, Ursula Baptiste, Miriam Francis, 40J Blade, Marley Gordon, Dorian Sapiens. Good to see you all. All right, let's get down to business. Ricky Ryan. Okay, now we can get started. Ricky Ryan's here. Now we can get started. All right, y'all. So if you did not watch the Remix Morning Show this morning, I recommend you go back and watch it. I do love doing the Remix Morning Show. I really do. But because of my workload and I'm trying to be better at handling my workload, I don't do all 3 days. I give myself a day to just, not be on at 8 o'clock in the morning. But today's show, and it wasn't planned, it was really like it was very personal for me. So, and very important information about Black people and our health. So please check out this show if you are concerned about your health. If you are if you want to know more about kidney health and why that's important for Black folks. And I'm in the process of kind of lining up some people to talk about this issue and some others regarding Black health issues, Black women's health issues during either the People's Power lunches or a 7 p.m. Luke Mon Nation slot. So check that out. But today's Remix Morning Show was quite dope. It was a lot of fun. So, in a little bit of another additional news, did you know that 2 media outlets in Texas uh, released the surveillance video from inside the school of the Uvalde shooting as it was happening? And the mayor of Uvalde condemned the media outlets for releasing the video. And here's why he condemned them: because the Austin American Statesman and a local ABC affiliate, KVUE, released the video to the public without notifying the families. They were told, the families of the victims were told by, I think, the mayor and the city council, that when they were about to release the video, the families would be given the opportunity, they'd be notified first. The families would be given the opportunity to see the video before anybody else saw it. But these 2 media outlets got hold of the video, and maybe it was a separate video, but they got hold of a surveillance video, very long, of inside the school as the massacre was happening. And without notifying the families without giving them an opportunity to prepare for what they were about to see. Nothing. They just showed it. And that was shitty. That was absolutely, as a journalist, I'm telling you that there was no journalistic a justification for those media outlets releasing that video without any consideration for the impact that it would have on the victims' families and breaching an agreement that the Uvalde City Council and the mayor had that they knew about, that the families would be allowed to view the video, whatever video the city released, before it was released to the public so they could be prepared. That is one thing. The video itself is repulsive in what it shows. What the police did, exactly what we thought they did. They didn't do shit. They didn't do anything. Here's the thing, though, that I want people to keep in mind about, and I'm not ever going to show the video. The thing we need to understand about Uvalde, Texas, is not just that it is a border town. It's a town on the border between the United States and Mexico, that imaginary border that the colonizers decided to put there uh, when they stole the country from. Okay, you know the story. But also, Uvalde is a highly militarized border town that has a unit of the Customs and Border Patrol Department called the BORTAC, which is Border Patrol Tactical Unit. They are the largest police force, the largest law enforcement presence in Uvalde. Almost 100 of those BORTAC pigs live in Uvalde. Uvalde has a large, it's over 80% immigrant population, and a lot of people there are, that word that I'm not going to use. So you've got a police force that is not that is a part of the agency that deports, that tracks down, detains, and deports people for being illegal from that community, always on the lookout for them. And then people are shocked, surprised, and oh my God, that they didn't do anything to save the babies from the same families in that community. I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised at all. It's a damn shame. It's not a shame. It's a fucking crime against humanity that these cops still have their jobs. Ain't nobody fired. If anybody is on administrative leave, it's with pay. Those babies are still dead. The police chief has resigned, but nobody is going to be held accountable for not protecting those children in that school, because nobody is going to challenge the very same pigs who terrorize the same community, deporting illegals. That's why they didn't protect those babies. That's why they stood in that hallway, listening to those children's screams as they were being shot to death. Yeah, yeah. Ricky points that out. Thank you. When she points out that Lawrence O'Donnell said when when they were showing some of the footage, that they muted the sound because of the screaming. I just So the whole time, all these cops, all these pigs, all these border patrol agents, all these BORTAC agents, one cop on his phone with the Punisher screensaver, another cop goes over and puts hand sanitizer casually, like nothing is going on, like those babies aren't screaming and being murdered down the hall. They hear it. They didn't respond because they don't care about them people. They did not care about them people. That's why the Uvalde cops and Customs and Border Patrol, the BORTAC unit cops, responded the way they did by not responding. because they don't care about those people. So there you go. All right, so that's that. A bit of good movement organizing news. This is very exciting for me as a member of the Black Alliance for Peace, and as someone who is always sharpened by the analysis and the leadership that comes out of my organization. I'm bragging a little bit, but this is important information for us to know in general as radical people. There is a program that the United Nations is about to reauthorize. They were supposed to vote to reauthorize this program in Haiti yesterday. But I'm going to claim that the Black Alliance for Peace put a little pressure on some world leaders and caused them to step back from that a little bit. So the Black Alliance for Peace issued a letter, an open letter to Mexico's president, Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador, or AMLO for short, asking him not to vote for the renewal of the UN occupation of Haiti. And this is the thing about AMLO. He's fantastic as far as, progressive issues, as far as Mexico is concerned, I think. But on the issue of the occupation and the oppression of Haiti, not good at all, because AMLO supports this program, as have Russia and China. And the Black Alliance for Peace issued this letter that we published, translated to Russian and Chinese and Spanish to not just AMLO, but a version of this letter was also delivered to the embassies of Mexico, to the embassies, I think, of China, and the embassies of Russia. So in the letter, this program is discussed in a great deal of detail. And I'll give you a link to this letter so you can read it for yourself. But the program is called the United Nations Integrated Office, or BENU. That's what it's called in Haiti. BENU acts as a foreign occupation in Haiti and has since 2004. They've suppressed Haiti's independence and sovereignty, and unfortunately, some world leaders who are otherwise very good on opposing U.S. imperialism have gone along with supporting the oppression of the Haitian people and the denial of their self-determination and sovereignty, where we go into this quite a bit. And I'm going to give you a link to this document right now so you can read it. You can click on all of the links therein that you are seeing so you can read what BENU is, the legal justifications that the United Nations uses for it, the UN Charter, all of this information, some history on Haiti, who the core group is, what they are, what they do, what this BENU occupation in Haiti does. We talk in this letter about the Summit of the Americas and how it was good that AMLO took the position he did on the Summit of Americas, but the contradiction is that he is denying the self-determination and the sovereignty of Haiti by continuing to support this effort. And I say that I'm going to big up the Black Alliance for Peace for causing some world leaders to rethink their position. I'm going to say that's what happened. That is what has happened. Oh, I'm sorry, and I forgot to share the picture with you of our Mid-Atlantic regional organizer, the co-organizer for the Mid-Atlantic, along with me, Rafiki Morris. This is the Black Alliance for Peace Facebook page. And yesterday, this is proof that Rafiki Morris, who is a member of the Black Alliance for Peace, a member of BAP's coordinating committee, Mid-Atlantic region co-coordinator, and a member of the All African People's Revolutionary Party, delivered the letter to the Mexican, Chinese, and Russian embassies. And there are the pictures. There is Brother Rafiki. There you go. So I'm saying that BAP has had a hand in causing some world leaders to rethink some things, because the vote to renew this program was supposed to take place yesterday. However, the vote has been postponed because apparently China is now stalling and calling for a private meeting before the vote. Me, bigging up my organization, I am gonna claim the victory for us, that we caused that backtrack. We caused that delay, and that hopefully our letter got to President Xi Jinping, and he read it and said, maybe this isn't a good idea. Now, I'm not saying that is why President Xi is holding up the vote, on the vote that was holding up the vote that was supposed to happen today. It is President Xi. China is holding up the vote that is supposed to happen today. He's still stalling. So, but I'm just saying, even if they ultimately go ahead and carry out the vote, um, this is what organization looks like. This is what organizing looks like in action. This is what we inside the Imperial Core are supposed to be doing, to do everything we can to defeat this enemy from the inside, in solidarity with our brothers and sisters who are fighting against it on the outside, even when that means we have to hold others who are otherwise very good at opposing imperialism, even when they are also on the wrong side of the equation. And in this instance, Russia and China absolutely are. And the Black Alliance for Peace, by the way, this was not just the Black Alliance for Peace and our organization creating this letter. We actually have over 40 organizations signing on to this letter that was delivered to the Mexican, Chinese, and the Russian embassies. So, Black Alliance for Peace all day. BAP, BAP, BAP. That's my org. This is why you have to join an organization. This is why you must be organized. So we will continue to watch what's going on. I know some comrades are talking about this on a couple of other platforms. We'll continue to monitor the situation, but really, really am proud to be a part of the Black Alliance for Peace. All right. So, folks, we were talking yesterday about organizing, and let me pull this down just a little bit. Okay, I'm so glad I found a spot in this room that is not as like dark, that doesn't look like as dark a dungeon. So I was able to have a little bit of halfway decent lighting finally. Oh, let me go back up. I'm sorry, I missed something. And I do not want to miss this. Ex Revolutionary, thank you so much for running us that $100. Jackie, thank you, and Black Power, for everything y'all do. It's much needed. And shout out to the fam. Shout out to you. Appreciate you so very, very much. Absolutely, our comrades over at Anti-Conquista signed on to the letter. This is solidarity, y'all. This is organizational unity and solidarity. This is unity of purpose that comes through organization and solidarity. And that's what I want to talk about today. I want to continue to talk about what we were talking about yesterday. And that is the need to organize, and the need for unity of purpose, and the need for greater organization. And a few people in the chat were asking questions about the FBI and the CIA. And I appreciate people for reminding me that not everybody knows the history of repression that left organizations, particularly Black and Indigenous and socialist and communist organizations in this country have experienced. So, two things right off the break. I don't want people to think that I am saying that the left is hopelessly disorganized, fractured, and a mess, and all hope is lost. And no, that's not what I'm saying at all. I am one of those people who believes that you can't fix what you don't acknowledge. If you There are problems with the way the left exists now, with the way the left operates now. The left is a general concept, right? The left, as in anything that's not the Democratic Party, and I think that's a part of the problem, because the tendency is to lump everybody and everything in with the general left. And I, for one, feel like there needs to be more clarity and specificity in what we're talking about when we say the left. So for me, when I am talking about the left, I am talking about uh, absolutely socialist, communist, revolutionary, radical, anti-capitalist, anti-patriarchal, anti-imperialist organizations that are pursuing socialism for all. That's what I mean. Pan-Africanist, internationalist. That's what I mean. And I think that's a part of the issue, that the left is very broadly defined, right? um and I don't know, I guess that's a whole, we could have a whole huge discussion about that. But what I want to do today is to make clear that I'm also, when I'm talking about the seeming disorganization and the lack of enough unity and enough clarity and enough organization on the radical left that I think does exist, I am not dismissing the fact that the state has, and always has, created a lot of that chaos. Um, and there is a very long historical basis for it. So um, I was really inspired really yesterday. So I have not been able to do a lot of my own political being engaged in my own political education because of all the stuff that's been going on with me. So I was very happy yesterday to finally be able to re-engage with another organization that I belong to, Pan African Community Action here in Washington D.C., that has a monthly Asada Shakur study group. So I was able to uh, enjoy, really soak in that good political education. And so it inspired me to continue this conversation today. So I want to share with you one of the documents that they gave us as a reference for reading material. And this document, it's not very long, but it is very important because it does contain this history of repression against radical left movements, mostly Black and Indigenous and anti-capitalist and anti-imperialist, that the US has been engaged in forever. Well, okay, not forever, but you know what I mean, for a very long time. And it mirrors what we are seeing today. All right, so let me share this document. Let me see if I can start from the beginning, because this thing is so good. So this is from the Hampton Institute, which I do enjoy. I enjoy their publications. Here is a link to this document. I'm going to drop it in the chat for you right now. I'm sorry. Thank you, Toby. Every other week, as the PACA study group. See, I told you it's been a while since it's been too damn long. Every other week, Asada Shakur study group, every 2 weeks. Thank you, Toby, for correcting me. This is an article where they outline the history of the FBI's war on the left. And I think somebody in the chat yesterday actually asked the question, so were the CIA and the FBI biased in going after black left organizations? And yes, they were. This history, this piece in from the Hampton Institute lays all that history out beautifully. So let me see if did I get, oh, all right. My highlights were saved. I'm always excited when my highlights save. All right, so this was actually republished from Midwestern Marks. So let's talk about COINTELPRO. But let's talk about before COINTELPRO, because people don't realize that there was a before COINTELPRO. And COINTELPRO, before COINTELPRO existed, was something that the FBI had called, where the FBI started in what's called the General Intelligence Division, that was created in 1919 by Anthony General A. Mitchell Palmer. Palmer, remember that name, to collect information on radical organizations. J. Edgar Hoover, who would, of course, remain in power for the next several decades, who was he? He was appointed as the head of the General Intelligence Division. This was before the FBI was actually the FBI, before COINTELPRO was a thing. The GID was immediately used in the Palmer raids, which were a series of mass arrests and deportations targeting alien members of radical organizations, immigrants. Yeah. The raids began on November 7th, 1919, when GID agents raided the offices of the United Russian Workers across the country, arresting 650 people and deporting at least 43 without due process. The crescendo of the raids came on January 2nd, 1920, when GID agents descended on radical groups in over 30 cities across the country, arresting at least 3,000 people. And as you can see, there are plenty of links to source materials in this document. Go to them, get them, retrieve them if you can, fill your brain up with it. It's good stuff. Much of this repression was directed at the Communist Party USA, the CPUSA, with the Secretary of Labor at the time, William Wilson, announcing on January 19th that membership in the CPUSA was enough to warrant deportation of immigrants. Stick a pin right there. Why is the CPUSA important in regard to Black labor struggles? Because in the South, this was after this period of time, but in the South, the CPUSA actually was very involved in the labor struggles of Black sharecroppers and workers. A lot of Black labor union members or Black workers who were fighting for a union were also members of the CPUSA. So that's an interesting tidbit of history. We'll get to that. I think they mention the resurgence of the CPUSA in the 30s and 40s, which is where the connection to Black Southern laborers comes around. Okay, so the raids were finally ended by a court ruling in June 1920, but by then the damage had been done. Left-wing organizations were effectively decimated, with the Communist Party membership dropping from over 27,000 in 1919 to just over 8,000 in the next year. So I don't want to underestimate the power that the government had in destroying the left movement in the United States. And in 1919, all the number, the date is all these things. 1919, the Russian Revolution, right? I think that's correct. Isn't that the year that the Russian Revolution happened? Yes, I think so. Yeah. Yes, you all, thank you very much, Ricky. Yes, also the Russian Revolution. So, yeah. The U.S. government targeted immigrants as a response to the Russian Revolution. Yeah. So this is partially why I don't tolerate, other than it's just hateful, xenophobic, and bigoted. As a radical Black leftist, I don't tolerate people who call themselves radicals or leftists or Pan Africanists who are also anti immigrant. All right, that's an aside there. Okay. So let me go. What else did remember? Um, this was also during the time pre FBI ish when Hoover was the head of this GID, where he targeted Marcus Garvey's United Negro Improvement Association, right? Whew, okay. Then they talk about the re-emergence of the Communist Party. With membership reaching up to 66,000 members by 1939. And here is where, when you're reading Robin D.G. Kelly's Hammer and Hoe, where he talks about the organizing of the Communist Party among the Black sharecroppers and the white poor farm laborers and other workers in the South during this period of time. Hoover then gained approval from President Roosevelt to resume repression of subversive activities. Although Roosevelt later altered this directive because why come? Because the Soviet Union became an ally of the countries that were fighting against Nazi Germany. It didn't matter to Hoover; he kept going after the communists in the U.S. So World War II ends. The West has no longer any use for the Soviet Union, doesn't like the fact that it was actually the Soviet Union and the Red Army that kicked the Nazis' asses, doesn't want to give them credit. Winston Churchill actually wants the U.S. to nuke the Soviet Union before World War II actually ended. But yeah, Winston Churchill wanted the U.S. to nuke the Soviet Union, all that kind of stuff. The FBI now is established, they are entrenched, and there's no need for the U.S. to pretend like they're allies with the Soviet Union anymore, because now the United States actively wants to destroy the Soviet Union. So, the Bureau used infiltrators to exploit internal divisions within the Communist Party in the US. And one of the things that they used was Khrushchev's denunciations of Stalin. There's a link here. I would recommend you to really dig into that link. There's a lot behind the whole Khrushchev Stalin history. Don't have time to get into it today, but it's a lot. But this is what the U.S. government does when it wants to destroy organizations. They will exploit divisions or conflicts that individuals in organizations have. This is one example. The way they exploited the split within the Communist Party in the USA over Khrushchev's comments about Stalin, and folks fell on different sides of that. What did they do? They sent anonymous mailings to people to disrupt the party activities. They would send letters to party members warning about the treacherous activities of the other members in the party that they were having a beef with, hoping to stir up even more disputes. This was common in what was called FBI snitch jacketing, which was how they would portray loyal party members as informants. This is what the FBI would do with these anonymous letters, claiming that this person who is actually loyal to the party, but just may have a disagreement about some internal thing, is actually an informant. And that's why they are, taking the line that they are. The FBI, what was the word I'm looking for? They put informants in organizations to spread rumors, forged reports, for informants, created fake interviews where agents would publicly speak with a target to create the impression that the party member was informing, and that like they were creating this scenario where they were in the act of informing to the FBI agent that this is what the FBI would do to the Communist Party in the USA. And then if the Communist Party branches and members were trying to organize with other organizations, then the FBI would go in and send derogatory information about the other organization to prevent the alliance. So these were the FBI's covert methods in the battle against domestic communism. All right. Anti-communism is still very much a part of the discourse on the so-called left. All these people who are claiming to be leftists or on the left in some way, but they are supporting the United States in this proxy war in Ukraine against Russia. It is all born out of this deep-seated anti-communism that a lot of folks on the left don't want to admit actually does exist on the left. All this Putin is the devil, and he woke up this one morning and decided to eat all the Ukrainian babies. That is a strain of the anti-communism that is as American as this bitch in its existence. It just is. And it was stoked by Russiagate. It was absolutely stoked with 6 years of the media and Democratic politicians and even some so-called politicians on the so-called left blaming Russia and Putin for hacking some elections in 2016 and either convincing stupid, gullible, willful Black people not to vote for their savior queen, Hillary Clinton, or convincing the same stupid or a different bunch of stupid, gullible Black folks to vote for Donald Trump. That, I swear to God, that's yes. Okay. So, but this battle against the FBI's battle against domestic communism also played a role in overt repression. The FBI played an active role in the rise of McCarthyism by cultivating friendly media outlets, which would be used to disseminate derogatory information about the Communist Party. What's been happening? What happened during 2020, during the uprising in the streets against racist police terrorism? How many media outlets actually accurately portrayed those uprisings as that? There were riots. They were violent. There was property destruction. There was not enough, if any, talk in the media about standing up for the lives that were taken by law enforcement that folks were sick of. Same thing, same tactics, different decade. That's all. All right. So later on, they say the FBI would use selective law enforcement to harass the party and its members. So people are like surprised that the cops like pull people over for dumb shit like a broken tail light. If you know this history, it would not surprise you because that's what they've always done. And just because it was the FBI doing this, it does not mean that this is not something that is done in coordination with the local police, because it is. It is. It always was. It was then and it is now, as they go into in this article. For example, a secretary of the Alabama branch of the Communist Party was arrested and convicted of possessing seditious literature for carrying copies of The Nation and The New Republic. Those publications were at once considered seditious and communist leading. Shocking, isn't it? This person was sentenced to 100 days hard labor and fined $100. This resulted in the government's use of the Smith Act to prosecute Communist Party members. What was the Smith Act? This was an act that was passed in 1940, and it created criminal penalties for advocating the forcible overthrow of the US government and required all adult non citizens to register with the federal government. Once again, targeting immigrants, but also sweeping in communists who were quote unquote citizens in there too. They got them going both ways. If you're a citizen and you're a communist, we're going to get you. If you're an immigrant, we're going to get you. And we hope that you're a communist, or we're at least going to make it look like you're a communist. The Smith Act would be used to prosecute 11 top Communist Party members in 1949. All 11 were convicted, with 10 being sentenced to 5 to 10 years, and one, who was a World War II veteran, sentenced to 3. Similar cases would occur across the country, with frequent FBI interference in the judicial process. Yes, I had a little note here. So when Democrats, let's bring it to today, now that you know what the Smith Act is, and by the way, the Smith Act is actually still in the books, and I believe Claudia Jones was one of those immigrant communists who was caught up in the Smith Act and deported because of the Smith Act. Yes, I think so. I believe she was. So now that you know what the Smith Act is, the Smith Act has never actually been repealed. Still on the books. So let me read this to you again. It creates criminal penalties for advocating the forcible overthrow of the US government. This is just a little aside. Now, what happened on January 6th was not a coup. Let's make that clear, because nobody seized any radio stations or television stations. Nobody seized any government buildings. Nobody detained any top government officials, and no power was actually usurped on that day. Did they try? I don't know that they tried to carry out a coup. I think that's a little bit of a stretch, but they did try to subvert the processes, the normal processes of government. So when the Democrats say that they just don't know, I mean, how do we charge all these people? I mean, it seemed like the Smith Act was easy enough to be used to charge people with carrying around a fucking magazine. But somehow it doesn't apply to people who literally like stormed the US Capitol with the intention of stopping an election and reversing the results of the election if they were. You see what I'm. Oh, okay. That was an aside. This, mind you, all of that, everything I just told you, all of that was actually before COINTELPRO. The FBI, the US government, with the coordination of local police, was doing all of that shit to Communist Party members, the Communist Party USA, and other radical organizations, all before COINTELPRO even existed. The official COINTELPRO program didn't begin until 1956. The actual plans on paper, COINTELPRO, 1956. The Communist Party by then, the Communist Party in the US by then had been decimated. But the majority of COINTELPRO operations were carried out against what was left of the party. But then they turned their attention to left-wing and civil rights movements, groups that they called Black extremist groups. They meaning J. Edgar Hoover and the FBI. Yes, they actually use the terms Black extremist. And now you understand why the FBI configuring this term Black identity extremist is some racist ass bullshit that is typical of the racist ass FBI. Not new, not at all. So, under COINTELPRO, the FBI targeted the Nation of Islam. They had files on Elijah Muhammad, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and Malcolm X. The FBI played a major role in driving a wedge between the two of them, using the tactics, kind of some of the tactics that they used against Communist Party USA members, CPUSA members. Other organizations that were under the attack by the FBI's COINTELPRO programs were the so-called good Black people programs. You know how we like to always say that we're not like those radicals. Some of us, we live some of our liberal friends always like to say, look, I'm not like those radicals. I'm a member of the NAACP. I'm not radical like that. The FBI didn't give a damn. They don't give a damn whether you consider yourself radical or not, because they considered the NAACP extremists. They considered the SCLC and SNCC extremists. They wiretapped Martin Luther King Jr. Remember, they sent him letters telling him that he should commit suicide. Sent those tapes to his wife. The Bureau infiltrators of the New Left student organizations were instructed to uncover evidence of the members' depravity, like their sexual activity, to be publicized. There is a movie about a lady, well, I can't remember her first name, but her last name is Seberg. She was a supporter of the Black Panther Party, and the FBI drove her to suicide because they published the lie that she was having a sexual relationship with a member of the Black Panther Party, and just completely disparaged her in the public, and drove her to suicide. And I think Jean Seberg, thank you, Fanny, French, Jean Seberg, and there's a movie about her. I have not seen the movie. I just remember that the movie is about her, and that is an example right off the top of my head that I can think of where the FBI targeted members of New Left organizations, even the white people, and what it means when they uncovered evidence of their depravity that they publicized. They didn't uncover anything. They literally lied about this woman having sex with a member of the Black Panther Party, and you know how this country is. You know how this country is. So she eventually committed suicide. If agents would contact targets' parents to inform them of their so-called subversive activities in these student organizations on campus, the anti-war movements. The FBI sought to prevent these groups from obviously exercising their First Amendment rights by preventing speaking events and public demonstrations. And since these groups were popular on college campuses, the FBI targeted academics friendly to radical groups to get them disciplined or fired. Who do you think is behind, other than the Zionists? But the FBI and the CIA are also behind a lot of the pro-Palestinian, pro-BDS professors being run out of academia. The few that exist today. In 1968, FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover sent a memorandum to FBI field offices instructing them to devise plans to exploit the conflict between the Black Panther Party and Ron Karenga's Black Nationalist US organization. There's a link for this too to the documentation. I encourage you to read it. This is how they did it. Infiltrators, anonymous mailings, forged propaganda. For instance, the Los Angeles field office responded to Hoover's call for proposals, reporting, quote, the Los Angeles office is currently preparing an anonymous letter for Bureau approval, which will be sent to the Los Angeles Black Panther Party, supposedly from a member of the US organization, in which it will be stated the youth group of the US organization is aware of the Black Panther Party's contract to kill Ron Karenga, leader of US, and they, US members, in retaliation, have made plans to ambush leaders of the party in Los Angeles. It is hoped this intelligence measure will result in an US and Black Panther Party vendetta. That is actual documentation. That is literally a report that an FBI agent wrote and submitted about how they were planning, how they plan to pit those two organizations together, resulting in possibly the deaths of some of the members. They knew what they were doing. The strategy actually bore fruit, as hostilities between the two groups spilled over into violent confrontation, resulting in the deaths of 4 Black Panther Party members, including prominent members John Huggins and Bunchy Carter. Despite Bureau protestations that it never intended to encourage violence, the FBI continued to do this shit, encourage hostility between the two groups even after those killings. This is proven in a 1970 report from the FBI's Los Angeles office, in which they say information received from local sources indicate that in general, the membership of the Los Angeles BPP is physically afraid of US members and take premeditated precautions to avoid confrontations. They go on. The Los Angeles division is aware of the mutually hostile feelings harbored between the organizations, and the first opportunity to capitalize on the situation will be maximized. It is intended that US Incorporated will be appropriately and directly advised of the time and location of BPP activities in order that the two organizations might be brought together and thus grant nature the opportunity to take her due course, which means grant them the opportunity to kill each other. The Bureau used the same techniques with Operation Hoodwink, where they attempted to spark conflict between the Communist Party and the criminal organization La Cosa Nostra, the mob, as well as criminal elements within reaction unions like the Teamsters. And they said that this didn't lead to any physical conflicts. And I got to pause here for a minute, because you know why? You know why that didn't work with the mob? Because the mob don't talk. They don't talk. They don't talk about mob business out in public to everybody in the world. The stop snitching, nobody is better at the stop snitching game than the mob and the cops and the mob. That's why that didn't work with the mob. And this leads me to some of the things that I talked about yesterday that I want to kind of clarify a little bit today about debates among radical people. It is true that there is a place for a good, rigorous intellectual debate in organizing. It's actually necessary in order to get to clarity on some ideological struggles. That's good. When debate happens within organization, and it is principled, and it is not based on people's personal feelings, and people ain't trying to be petty. And even if people are passionate about disagreeing, those debates are good and they're desired, and we need those. The debates I'm talking about are just like the public kind of, let's get these two people who are on absolutely opposite ends of the spectrum together and have a YouTube live about it, just for shits and giggles. And that I'm not with. fine if people feel like they need to do that. I'm not knocking the people who do it. I'm just saying for me and where I am in my radical wherever I am organizing, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. I can tell you that right now in one of my two in both of the organizations I belong to and a couple of other the organizations we're affiliated with, we are engaged in good ideological robust debate about disagreements on very important issues. That's important. But see, it needs to be done in house. I don't everybody does not need to know about these internal, thank you, Ricky, unprincipled, bad faith engagements that people have, that people put out there on Twitter and Facebook and YouTube. Honestly, they do it for likes. They do it for likes and follows. And the history shows us, our history of struggle shows us that if we don't get anything else right, keeping our shit in house needs to be the thing we get right, because we're being surveilled and spied on and infiltrated anyway. But damn it to hell, y'all, we don't need to make it easier for them Bamas to pit us against each other. I am not for airing of personal or interorganizational beefs because of this history. So I hope that clears it up a little bit. Then, all right. So let's get back to this thing. Additionally, the FBI like to use a specific form of infiltrator known as agents provocateurs, who would encourage members to commit violent or criminal acts. Yes, this is my little note here. This little sticky note. This is why, y'all, people who come to your organization or come to you, and they always talking about, nah, what we need to do is commit this act of violence. No, what the only thing we need to do is be armed. People who talk only about arming folks, but are not talking about political education and organization. Be wary of those people. I am absolutely not at all against self-defense in the struggle for self-determination. There is going to be a need for that. Absolutely. If you think we're going to get free through this struggle without a part of this struggle being an armed struggle, I think you need to ask Amilcar Cabral and Thomas Sankara and Samora Machel and a lot of our revolutionary leaders who have died in the struggle and engaged in armed struggle because reason doesn't work with the settler colonial mindset. And as we see in this piece, these people are not reasonable. You cannot reason with these people. We out in the streets trying to reason with a whole law enforcement apparatus that has an entire system with ways and plots and plans to pit us against each other and pick each other off, walk around in the streets with our hands up begging don't shoot. Get the fuck. We are walking into this assuming that these people have a conscience and can be reasoned with. They cannot. They cannot be reasoned with. All of this, I'm telling you that the institution that is supposed to mete out justice in this country, this is what one of those institutions has done and continues to do. And you think these people are reasonable? No. So yes, armed struggle is going to be a part of this. So I'm not at all saying that we should not be serious about that part of the struggle, but be very, very wary of people who come to you only talking about we need guns. All we need is guns. All we need is guns. We all need to be armed like they are. All we need is guns. No. Not only are those people politically immature, but history shows us, our own history of struggle shows us that more than likely those people are probably in league with the state. So, um, how did they do this? They did this with like the Communist Party. Um, oh, sorry. Oops. For example, they used an agent, uh, inserted an agent into the Weather Underground, and had a member of the Weather Underground arrested for a conspiracy to bomb Detroit police facilities. The person who convinced the person who was arrested in the Weather Underground to do all this was an FBI agent. Larry Grathwohl, an FBI informant. Grathwohl instructed members on how to build bombs and participated in the group's bombing of a Cincinnati public schools. Another example, and one of the most famous, was Tommy the Traveler, Tongier, who traveled around college campuses in the Northeast, encouraging students to bomb military research facilities. Be very wary of people showing up in your circles talking about we can do let's do this let's carry out this act of violence. Don't. Hell no. No. The FBI cooperated with local law enforcement to harass targeted groups and their members. They sought to stop targets frequently, hoping to arrest and convict them on minor charges. They would attempt to frame targets for crimes they did not commit. Again, we need to stop being surprised that the police stop people for dumb shit like a broken tail light, a missing rear license plate, a broken antenna. It's not, they're not bored. They're doing exactly what they have always done. This is how they get us. It's how they've always done it. This is how Geronimo Pratt, if you do not know his story, this is how they finally got Geronimo Pratt, who was a member of the LA branch of the Black Panther Party. The state tried to convict him many times on trumped up charges. All those convictions failed. Pratt was finally accused of the 1968 tennis court murder, where a white couple was murdered on a tennis court in Santa Monica, California. The wife died a week later. In August 1969, an anonymous letter was delivered to the Los Angeles Police Department claiming that Geronimo Pratt committed the murders and had been bragging about it. The husband positively identified Pratt, which led to his arrest and eventual conviction. However, the FBI was involved in the trial. The letter was written by Julius Butler, an FBI infiltrator who was also a prosecution witness in the trial against Geronimo. The Bureau had at least one infiltrator on Geronimo's defense team, keeping the Bureau advised on their defense strategy. And the prosecution hid the fact that the husband, Kenneth Olson, had actually identified somebody else, Ronald Perkins, as his wife's killer. And the police had purposefully influenced Olson, basically told him to name Pratt. So Pratt stayed in prison for a crime he didn't commit until 1997, when his case was finally invalidated because of pressure from the people and due to the prosecution's suppression of evidence. All of what I just said, all of what I just told you happens to Geronimo Pratt happens today. And it's the reason, so it is the reason our political prisoners, almost every single one of them, are in prison today. This is why political prisoners and the fight to free political prisoners is so important. Because it is not that they are, the question is not their guilt or innocence. The question is that they were imprisoned by a system that is unjust, and freeing them exposes the ways this unjust system ensnared them in the first place. All right, let's wrap this up. Let's see. What's the this is the thing. I had heard about the so-called shootout between the Black Panther Party in Oakland and the cops, but I had always heard about it in that way, as if it was this like equal shootout. The Black Panther Party shooting at the cops shooting at the Black Panther Party. But that's actually not what happened. COINTELPRO, the Oakland raid was a COINTELPRO operation coordinated with the Oakland Police Department and was a part of many of their violent political assassinations. This was the Oakland raid. In 1968, a group of Panthers were confronted by police officers in West Oakland. They weren't doing nothing. The cops roll up on them, confront them. Gunfire was exchanged. The cops shot first. Cops cordoned off the block. After an hour and a half, the Panthers tried to surrender. But Lil Bobby Hutton, who was not armed, came out of a building's nearby basement. He was shot dead by the cops. That's what happened in the Oakland raid. And then the case that we all know about, a case that a movie was made into, trying to humanize the fucking informant. The COINTELPRO worked with the FBI through COINTELPRO, worked with the Chicago police, assassinated Fred Hampton in 1969. They were assisted by FBI infiltrator William O'Neill, who gave the FBI detailed floor plans of Hampton's apartment. Hampton and Mark Clark were murdered that day. All right. Let's see, what was my note here? Did I leave a little note here? Yeah. I was so mad when this is why the movie Judas and the Black Messiah is absolute bullshit. Because the movie seeks to humanize the fucking informant. Judas and the Black Messiah seeks to humanize the pigs and their pig assistant, William O'Neill. So when we talk about organizing and unity of purpose today on the left, whatever it is, we have to keep the history of struggle against the state in mind, which makes me feel like knowing even a fraction of this history, and that's just a little bit in one article that was synthesized very, very well down to that little bit. That's just a little bit. Knowing more of the history of the long and continued history of state repression, of people's struggles in this country, I feel like that ought to drive us to more unity and more organization. When I read stuff like that, when I learn about things like that the state has done to our ancestors, our forerunners in the struggle for liberation, I think for myself, I cannot let those people down. The hell they went through to achieve liberation for our people from this system, I can't not continue to struggle against this system and what they were struggling against. So I need to learn what they were struggling against. So this weird amorphous thing that we're involved in called the left, we got to clear that up and be clear about what we are struggling against and what we're struggling for. Yeah, a little bit over today. Big T, a little bit over. It was a lot. Yes, Pittsburgh, I saw the movie. And the movie absolutely does try to humanize and make William O'Neill a sympathetic figure. The movie actually ends with this narrative about, after everything he did, setting up the Panthers for the FBI, all he got was a gas station and $300. Fuck him. The movie absolutely was designed to humanize the informant. being a good movie. Yeah, Hollywood makes good movies all the time and fucks up our history, and in the process fucks up our thinking. So let's be clear on what that movie does and and the focus of the movie and why the movie. We were supposed to feel sorry about what William O'Neill did and feel bad that maybe he was regretful. Kiss my whole black. Anyway. So knowing this history of state repression that our forerunners in the struggle against this system have endured, that ought to cause us to organize more to defeat it. It really should. It ought to cause us to learn even more about this history so we can really know our enemy, because they know us. They know us. So I really believe that the more political education we have, the more that should radicalize us to take up the fight that our forerunners in this struggle were in, to fight against this system of repression, to fight against this system of denial of liberty and human rights, and to do it in organization and with unity of purpose, because doing it any other way, doing it in these silos, having little infights in between, among each other and publicizing that stuff, as you can see, that's exactly what the state wants us to do. So maybe let's do something different, y'all. Okay. Thank y'all so much for joining me. I went over a little bit today on this People's Power lunch because it was actually kind of good. I was enjoying myself talking to y'all. Let me check and see what some of y'all comments have been. I know I was looking for Sheena, and I don't know where she is. Sorry she missed it. I hope she can catch it on the replay. I'll be back tomorrow with another People's Power lunch. I'll try to make it a little bit lighter because this week has been kind of heavy. I hope that I'm going to have a Blackonomically Speaking tomorrow at 7 p.m. with Dr. Linwood Tawheed here on Black Power Media. I am not sure about his schedule, may be a little bit iffy, but oh yeah, and you all have been asking about this t-shirt: red for the blood, black for our people, green for the rich land, Africa, that they stole from us and stole us from. Yeah. All right, y'all. Burn It Down with Kim Brown tonight, I believe, at 5:00. Please check out my girl. Thank you, Quaker Anarchist, for saying that. More to come, more updates to come. Who knows what's going to happen? But anyway, it's time for me to actually have lunch and get ready for the live hour on By Any Means Necessary here on Radio Sputnik, which you can check out at 3 p.m. live, me and Sean the Voice Blackman at rumble.com/C/BAM necessary, where you can join in the chat there too. And today, the live hour, is just going to be me and Sean kicking it. So hope to see you all there. Thanks for hanging out with me today. As usual, folks, take good care of yourselves and each other. And as always, a luta continua. The struggle continues, but Victoria acerta. Victory is certain. Peace.